Are you worried about today's dire financial situation?
Put simply, I would argue the Biden economic plan is working.
The storms on Wall Street continue today after regulators seized the assets of Silicon Valley Bank, marking the largest bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis.
Do you worry you'll have enough to pay your mortgage, pay your children's college tuition, enough to retire?
I believe our banking system remains strong.
Regional banks in focus once again today as the market digests the fallout of the First Republic failure.
You have questions, we have answers. It's the gold standard with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Thank you for joining us. We are back together again for another week, another episode of the Gold Standard Radio Show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn. Always great to see you, Ken.
The people have questions, and we have answers.
Yes, we
according
do.
to producer Mike.
The answer is always yes.
Fantastic.
You know what? Just keep it going. Now, we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about surprises, maybe an October 22nd surprise. And no, we're not talking about a Yankees-Dodgers World Series on October 22nd, although you and I would like that a lot.
It could happen. Yeah, the topic of today's show, right, Jen? For
Yeah.
the listeners out there, prepare yourself for an October 22nd surprise.
But it's maybe not a great surprise.
Well, I would say it's an inevitable surprise from what we talk about every week. So, it's okay.
Right. So it's not really a surprise, then we see it coming.
Not to us, but,
It's a non-surprise surprise.
Yes.
Surprise. All right, well, we will talk all about that here in just a few moments. We'll also talk about our upcoming election as well this hour. We'll be talking about our 2024 outlooks.
They're going to have an election?
We'll find out. I don't know.
Okay.
Did you hear already about the Zika virus that's, I guess, taking Europe by storm?
No.
It's like some sort of bug, mosquito-borne thing. Get ready. I'm sure it'll land here November 1st, probably. But all right, let's figure out how we got into this mess, shall we? So we are in a position where there is a lot of government spending. There is a lot of spending to get us out of trouble, right? We're paying a lot of debt. We're paying interest.
How
on the
is
money we
all of this
borrow.
possible?
Well,
Where does all of this money come from?
You know who I'd like to bring into the studio to ask that question, where that money comes from, is the great former President Richard Nixon.
Why do you say this? Why is he so why is he so important? We talk about this every week. I mean, why is this man, why does he hold such a special place in our heart?
Well, he thought he would try a little something, a little experiment, if you will. And
well, he was probably the fall guy, right?
He was the fall. I'm sure it wasn't just him. I don't like to blame a lot on Nixon. He had a tough time.
Because the Federal Reserve Bank started in 1913.
That's right.
So then, they were, doing the paper money thing.
And by the way, they don't work for the government.
Let's devalue it. Like in 1933 was the first time they devalued the dollar. Then we had World War II, spending a lot of money. Then we had Vietnam. And then the early 70s.
Here comes Richard Nixon.
Yes.
What does he say?
Are you ready for 3,000% inflation over the next 50 years?
And he said yes.
I'm going to dismantle the conversion of the dollar into gold.
Boy. So he had his Darth Vader mask on when he
did. Yeah. But for people that are listening out there, what does that mean? Our dollar was then no longer backed by gold.
Because up until that time, it had been.
It had been, and our gold was taken away from our money. Our money is now backed by nothing. When you look at it, it says Federal Reserve note on it. So this is the note, people, from a private corporation, the Federal Reserve Bank, which is not federal at all, right? They appoint, the president appoints the leader, but it's a corporation with shareholders.
Yep, a lot of powerful people.
And they print the money and charge interest and lend it back to the other corporation, the United States of America, and we're in this big debt bubble.
I'm telling you right now, it's a good job if you can get it. But for the rest of us who don't have that job sitting on the board at the Fed, we're suffering.
Well, it's an inevitable system.
Yeah.
And like we talk about, big surprise on October 22nd, and we'll get that into it in a second. But our money continuously loses value.
Right.
And they keep lying, the government, and they keep coming out with these numbers, and they keep saying, inflation is only 2%, 3%. Yeah, every year.
Right, it adds up.
Yeah, and it never goes back down.
Yeah.
So if the inflation rate, or if our money's lost about 30 or 40% of its value in the last few years, especially, everybody could feel it. You don't have to be a prize-winning economist
Yep.
to understand that everything costs 30 or 40% more. And it's because the buying power of our paper money, the more they print and the more they spend and the more they make this hole just bigger and bigger and bigger, the purchasing power of our money dwindles.
That's right.
So what you have to ask yourself is, if I'm holding on to money, what kind of money typically and historically has a long track record of holding its value, building its value, and holding your purchasing power? Now, dun, dun, dun.
Just look at history.
Yeah, it's gold. I
Right.
mean, the price of gold 20 years ago was $300. The price of gold today is almost $2,500.
It's gone up. It's going in the right direction.
The price of gold, when President Nixon took us off the gold standard officially and completely, temporarily, 53 years ago, gold was $30 per ounce.
Wow.
So there's a big difference if you hold paper money and get a little bit of interest and lose buying power versus holding real gold, real money made
That's
by the
increased
United
over
States
time.
Mint, which is, according to the Constitution, money, coinage. So that's the difference between holding a worthless piece of paper and who knows what it's going to be worth
Yeah.
5, 10 years from now. My contention is that it's going to be worth a lot less.
Now, we're going to talk about this surprise, but I have to tell you a fun little experiment. And this was actually one of our associate producers that wanders around here at the old Radio Ranch, Courtney. Her sister-in-law is a big fan of Trump. And, Trump's talking about how he wants to tackle inflation. So she does have a political outlook. But she said to do this, and it is so crazy. Ken, you have an Amazon account?
Yeah.
Go to Amazon and go to your order history.
Okay.
Look at your order from 2016, 2017. Pick a Trump year, basically. Pick
Okay.
2017. Click on replace the same order, basically.
Yeah, right. Buy it again.
Buy it again. That's right. Click on buy it again and see what it comes up with your cost today. And that will show you that the amount of goods and services that is real. People can tell you it's not, but you're going to be surprised. It's up by 30, 40%. I tried it with a few different orders, and it was amazing.
I read an article the other day about Denny's restaurant, and not to pick on Denny's. I love the Grand Slam breakfast.
The Rudy Tooty Fresh and Fruit. Or no, was that IHOP?
I don't know. It might have been. Yeah. Grand Slam.
Yeah, the Grand Slam.
Used to be like $5.99. You
Right.
could get a few pancakes, scrambled eggs, sausage, bacon, whatever. English muffin, which I'm a big fan of.
I like that too.
They said in a restaurant in New York it costs $21.99 now for a Grand Slam breakfast.
$21 for breakfast at Denny's?
Now, that may not be every single Denny's, but that
Yep.
particular one, that's what, even if it's 4 or 5 times the price that it used to be, that's what we're experiencing everywhere.
Right.
And people keep saying, well, is that why the price of gold is going up? Yeah, well, that's why the price of gold is going up, but it's because our dollar is going down.
Right. They're like,
That's
one
the
goes up, one
relationship.
goes down. Exactly right. All right. So let's talk about October 22nd. I was kidding earlier. That's about the time the World Series will take place. But this surprise is not the October surprise you're thinking of, Ken.
Yeah, and October 22nd is actually the next time that the BRIC nations, the BRIC countries, are going to meet. And remember, the BRIC countries are Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and then there's like 5 new
Got
additions.
Saudi Arabia in there,
yeah,
right?
Saudi
somewhere? Yep.
Arabia, Iraq, the United Arab Emirates, I believe Ethiopia. So, all these countries got a lot of resources,
Sure.
and there are a lot of canals and a lot of passages through oceans and seas that they control. It's very important. So at the last meeting in 2023, there was a rumor that they were going to introduce a new currency.
Right.
To compete with the dollar.
Kind of a global currency, right? That would be, as you mentioned, in competition with our dollar. And they're already not operating in our dollar there with the BRICS countries too,
well,
right?
they everywhere operates with our dollar because it's the world reserve currency. But the problem is that dominance of the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency is dwindling.
It's declining.
It's
Okay.
declining, okay? So you have these other countries that want to do more business in their own currency.
Sure.
They want to trade and settle oil contracts not only in dollars, which has been a big benefit to the dollar, but they want to do it in yuan and other currencies and even gold. So if we get an announcement, which I'm expecting this October 22nd, of a new currency, that will really underpin, Jen, the dollar's status as world reserve currency. And it just goes to show you that the West, especially Russia, is trying to develop an alternative financial system, and they're trying to push that to the West.
Yeah.
And then, it's bad news for our advantage and the dollar. So the contention is, if all of this new demand is going into other currencies, and if all of this other demand financially is going to other things than our debt or our dollars, that's bad news for the buying power and the strength of our dollars, of our Federal Reserve notes.
Give us some examples of what you think
Well,
could
somebody
happen.
asked me today, he said, in the next 10 years, what are you pretty positive about?
Sure.
I said, well, I think in the next 10 years that our money will lose at least half of its value. So that means if you are expecting to buy anything 10 years from now in dollars, I would expect it to be twice as expensive almost as today, at least 50% more expensive. So anything going forward that's going to be priced in dollars is going to be more expensive.
Right.
Anything that's priced in gold, because it is a store of value, holds its value, will be less expensive, which means the same amount of ounces of gold to buy an asset today will probably be the same amount of gold ounces to buy that same particular asset 10 years from now.
And that's
it
why
holds its value.
That's why we say it's a great way to think about planning for your retirement, right? Or to look into those kinds of plans.
Well, you need assets, Jen, that are going to hold their value, not to mention privacy, not to mention you could hold it yourself and have control of it, not to mention that maybe you don't want to have all of your assets wrapped up in a banking system that's sick or a financial market that's really volatile. I mean, even producer Mike today was saying, listen, I'm just pretty much a bystander, but the volatility in these markets really makes me concerned.
Up and down.
And he said, I can see why we're in such a bubble. And eventually that bubble is going to pop. So when that bubble pops, the question is do you have some sound money, a good foundation of money? And that begins and ends with gold.
And if you are thinking about it, if you've been on the fence, if you listen to us every week and you go, I might call Midas Gold Group, well, you do it today. How about that? Get it taken care of. Get it on your list of things to do to take care of your financial future. 855-322-4653, 855-322-GOLD. That's what it spells out. 855-322-GOLD. You can get all kinds of resources, articles, more podcasts like this one. MidasGoldGroup.com, MidasGoldGroup.com, or a simple call to 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-4653. There's more up ahead. It's the Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Dr. Gorka here. You're listening to The Gold Standard with your hosts, Ken Russo from veteran-owned Midas Gold Group and Jennifer Horn. Owning private money in the form of physical gold and silver is perhaps more important than ever to your long-term financial security. As U.S. banks fail, the Biden administration sends hundreds of billions abroad while depleting our strategic oil reserves. However, the biggest financial threat may be coming from within: central bank digital currency. The patents have been filed and the big banks have released plans for implementation. Midas Gold Group sees tyrannical implications: the end of cash, the end of financial privacy, big government able to see your every purchase. Could there be ties to social credit? Hear more commentary on the political and economic issues that affect your financial security right here on the Gold Standard. You can create your own Gold Standard with a call to Midas Gold Group, 855-322-GOLD. That's 855-322-4653, MidasGoldGroup.com.
Welcome back. It is the Gold Standard Radio Show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn back together again. And thank you all for being with us today. Now, Ken, we were talking about the October surprise, October 22nd, meetings of the BRICS.
2024.
That's right. Coming up.
Dun, dun, dun.
It's going to be here before we know it because, we're already through August. So
It's inevitable.
Yeah, blink.
It is.
And you're going to be in October. They're already bringing out the Halloween stuff. Pumpkin spice season. But these nations are going to come together, the BRICS nations, and you have made a prediction that they will, at this meeting, introduce a currency, a new currency perhaps, to get rid of our dollar and to operate in something that belongs to them, to weaken it.
To weaken it more. I mean, the
doesn't
dollar
go away.
still
It
is the
stays.
world reserve currency,
But it declines.
But it's being weakened. You know, it's being used less and less by these other countries, and they want to use their own currencies more and more, and
that spells trouble for us.
That sounds like it's a trend that's going in the wrong direction for the dollar.
And Russia, I believe you said, is leading this effort. They've been really pushing this strongly. They're one of the member countries, BRICS. And you think, okay, not only is it an economic thing, but it's also a little stick it to the United States thing, right? They like to see us weakened.
Well, and also we kind of,
we asked for it a little.
Poked a bear back in 2022 when, the Biden team. Way to go, Joe.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Joe.
He weaponized the dollar and he sanctioned Russia when they, had the invasion of Ukraine. And I think it made other countries think, well, listen, if they could be sanctioned and have their assets or their dollars or their debt frozen, what would happen to us? So that means that there's a movement of, well, let's de-dollarize. Let's get out of some of these dollar-denominated reserves and let's get into other stuff like gold, like tangible assets, and like other currencies. So that's where we're headed, inevitably. And, I would say that we probably provoke that to some degree. We'll have to see what happens in November if temporarily something could change on that face, but we'll have to see.
Okay, so speaking of November,
that's kind of, you see how I brought that
I know,
in?
I love it. So there could be a surprise in November too. You know what? There will be a surprise.
No, there's going to be a big surprise in November.
Well, I hope it's a good surprise, but we never know. So we've got a presidential election coming up, and we all know the craziness that has been going on. We know that at this point it could be Kamala Harris unless she starts to lose, and then maybe Democrats slip someone else in. Who knows? That's what
I heard
she's
gaining power.
She's gaining power.
Yeah, she's gaining power.
Yes.
How?
Absolutely.
I don't know, but she's gaining.
Her platform page is empty, and the only economic policy she's provided is one she stole from Trump. But I'm sure it's coming along.
Well, maybe there's one section of the voting class that's just happy to vote for somebody that doesn't fall down or
with a pulse.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Kamala Harris is going to be on one side of the ballot.
Yes.
We've got RFK Jr. in there too. Can't forget him, and Cornel West and Jill Stein. But then we've got President Trump on the other side.
I think we can probably safely assume, especially
I always
after
call
the
her
bear,
2%
the
Jill.
bear story,
right? The bear story,
which I still can't really get over about bringing a bear from upstate New York to Central Park
in his car and then staging it with like it got run over by a bicycle. Interesting.
It's interesting, and I don't think he's able to run on the New York ballot now too because he had a residential sort of thing. But I would say we're probably down to Trump versus Harris.
So let's go through these options. And since we can make the argument it's probably going to be one of them, let's talk about what happens to gold. Let's start with ladies first, Kamala Harris.
It's been a question I've been getting a lot lately because obviously the Trump camp and everybody who supports the Trump camp, they think that the great yellow-haired man, the gold-haired man.
Yeah, he's a gold man. He would like to be a gold man.
Orange face, but gold hair.
I've been to Mar-a-Lago. There's a lot of gold there.
They think he's just going to come in, clean everything up. Economy is going to be like 100 gazillion miles an hour
bada
again.
Bing, bada boom.
Bam.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope so.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. First of all, if anybody says that to me, I would say, well, first of all, where's the money going to come from? Okay. President Trump took debt from $20 trillion to $28 trillion during his 4 years from 2016 to 2020.
And a lot of COVID money was spent, too, during that time.
It's a big record. It was a great pace, which, this administration seems like it's on track to even beat that.
Hold my beer is what they said,
now,
I think.
Could we have better borders? Yes. Could we have better foreign relations? Yes. Could we have better, policy with war? Yes. Could we have a better tax system? Yes. Could we have a better economy? Yes. All of those things, interest rates, everything. But to do all of that, it's going to require trillions of dollars more
money, baby,
out of thin air and more debt.
Yeah.
President Trump is a businessman, but he does like nice things and he does like to spend.
Yeah.
And that's spending hopefully on the right things. Okay, that's a good point. Maybe we can spend the money on right things.
Here's the most nonpartisan, bipartisan thing you're going to ever hear me say.
Hit it.
Both Republicans and Democrats stink when it comes to spending. You're not hearing one person that is talking about balancing a budget that has any plan at all or any idea how you could actually balance the budget because we are so far gone.
Well, that's right. And the taxes that we collect are not enough. So to offset the spending, and that's why there's deficits every single year, which this year is going to be another at least $2 trillion.
And no one wants to make cuts.
So if President Trump is reelected, coming back from never
Third
losing,
term.
whatever, okay, however you want to put it.
I'm just trying to aggravate our producer.
The price of gold should do well.
Yes.
Because they're going to print more money, they're going to lower interest rates, and that will still weaken the dollar. So gold will do well. Now, on the other hand, as outrageous as this sounds,
Oh, boy.
if Kamala Harris wins, I can't even believe that just came out of my mouth.
I heard it.
What would that mean for gold?
Yeah.
Well, I would have to say more democratic policies, which typically are let's give away more money. Let's support more, programs.
Well, universal health care, she has said that in the past.
And everybody who's coming over the border,
Yep.
health care for them.
For illegal people, yeah.
Rent money for them. And okay, so that's something that we're going to have to print out of thin air. Let's Go Green initiative.
Green New Deal.
Solar, let's get oil. Everybody has an electric car or scooter and, lives in a 15-minute city or whatever you want. Well, where's the money going to come from that? So that'll be trillions and trillions of dollars more. They think they're going to be able to raise taxes on everyone. So what do you think that's going to do to the economy? It's just going to crush the economy. So how would they try and revive the economy falsely? Oh, well, maybe they could print more money and, allow the Fed to do more quantitative easing programs like they did back in 2008. The bottom line is even if the Democratic Party wins in 2024, the presidential nomination, oh, my God. There's
Did
still,
you throw up a little in your mouth?
35 trillion right now, right? We said that we're on pace 10 years from now to be 70 trillion, that the debt is on pace to double in the next 10 years. Remember we did that little exercise last week? They'll have a big part in the next 4 years to play in building that debt even at a greater pace than what we've seen. So price of gold,
you're telling us we're just in trouble no matter what.
Yeah. Now, temporarily, we may be better with one, person winning versus the other. But ultimately, the system is so sick and it's so dependent on fake money and it's so dependent on debt.
Yeah.
Eventually, like producer Mike said, this bubble is going to pop. And the question is, what are you going to have left when that bubble pops?
That's right.
And the question is, how much of that is going to be in paper? How much of that could be in gold? How much can you kind of preserve now, make some moves now, so that whenever this tsunami comes of debt and tsunami of money printing comes by whatever candidate is elected, we all know our dollar is going to get obliterated. The economy at some point too.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No, finish, because I have just a quick question.
Going to say, that's inevitably going to happen. Who knows the time frame, right?
Yeah.
But that's inevitably going to happen. And the question is why on earth would you ever want to have all of your money in a system or a banking system or a market that's so volatile or so sick or so false and, fraudulent? Why would you want to have all of your paper money or paper investments wrapped up in an environment like that? So that, in my opinion, like we asked last week, Jen, what would happen to your money when the system and if the system collapsed? What would you have left? What would you still have to turn to? And that's where gold comes into play.
Quick question, and I know we're up against our break here, but 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-4653. Does it matter if we buy gold before the election or after? Is there typically any sort of shift?
Well, I think the best time to buy gold was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today.
Is right now.
And, if you're a person that thinks that the price of gold is too high, I would just tell you.
That's not what you're buying it for, though.
No, I mean, obviously it matters in the short term, but in the long run, it's not going to matter.
855-322-4653, 855-322-GOLD. That's the number for Midas Gold Group. Or you can always go online to check out their resources, their product catalogs, and more. MidasGoldGroup.com, MidasGoldGroup.com. And it's an easy phone call. The guys over there are great. You'll even talk to Ken. You never know when he picks up the phone. 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-4653. Thanks for joining us. It's been the Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.